Okay. You did it.
That was a very good idea though, because I do it anyway. You know, it's not.
You do. Okay.
Just nobody ever joins.
Okay. Isn't it required?
It is required to have it available
If
if someone
somebody
asks.
Right.
And we do. I mean, I do it anyway. So if somebody asks, I could easily send them
The link.
call in.
Yep.
We actually don't need to. But the new thing is that we have to publicly post the meetings.
Yes.
So I actually added those to the website now.
Yep.
The last meeting, the current meeting.
Mhm.
So those will be available if anybody wants to relive one of these meetings.
As if 2 minutes aren't good enough. Yeah, because we don't.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, I'm supposed to call the meeting to order, and it is 6:10, I believe.
Yes, 6:10. Are you gonna?
I need something to write with.
I was gonna offer.
Call meeting to order, February 11th. It is 6:10. And we have no public. I don't see any public here. Any changes to the agenda?
There are 2 additions. I noted them at the bottom under new business. 2 additions. One is backup power / office projects, which when we get into finalizing the budget, we can talk a little bit about that. And Great River Hydro account. I got a call this afternoon from Great River Hydro asking for their money. So we'll talk about that.
All right. You all have the minutes in your packet. You know. Like, be a pen.
It's funny how many times you can read this.
Well, we never used to put like all those
You don't really.
information in the maps because they're in
Right.
packet information, but for a minute, yeah, posted, but the packet doesn't, so that the details don't get mentioned. We don't. There's another one.
Oh, yeah. And technically, the packets are public information, so somebody asked me.
Right.
Give me pick it on 7. It was very dry video. About opening it up. It was brutal. I don't know if you watched it or not.
Yeah, but I was working at the same time.
Oh,
I didn't. I focused for most still.
and an attorney
You know,
talking about.
I did not go to the end. I should have. Sounds like because the LCT came on.
Right.
And I'm like, you're
Saying the same thing.
Yeah. Have anybody wishing to make a motion? The changes that James pointed out, just dollar signs in front of 22,933 and a dollar sign in front of 2,565. Under outstanding, that's about, under warrant people, sorry.
And just tell me if it's too loud, I can shut that off.
It's not louder than two nipples. I move we accept the minutes as presented and corrected. Back at that motion.
But, louder. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Okay, we have, financial report and treasurer's report. John is gonna take over.
If you look at your next page, you'll see that we are down about $10,000 from the previous month. But that's because we're making some progress in paying the EPSA bill. We're still in good shape as far as our
Yeah.
cash account goes.
Well.
We're trying to not have too much extra floating around the cash account.
Okay.
The last 2 months, we've written a second check to Vespa. Right?
Correct.
So. Statement of debit, who wants to take out one? That's our
Well,
loan to our truck and up.
yeah, that's also going down a little bit. Again, that's because of the payment of EPSA.
We were able to make a payment of $85,000 to VEPSA this month. And we were charged from VEPSA $73,900. So we paid more back than what we were billed. So that's the direct, and that's 2 months in a row. Essentially, since our rate case has come through, we're now able to pay some of that back every month.
Yep.
So it's not a lot, but it is moving the right direction, which is
Just like our customers, we're making progress on our bills.
And then the last thing, this report right here, which you guys don't have colored copies of apparently.
Okay.
But they are the correct numbers. We sent out bills. So we ended out December. If you look at this year cash receivables, we ended out December at 71,000. I'm sorry, $115,655 that we received. We billed that month was 109. So last time we met, we were kind of halfway through the month, so we didn't know where we were going to wind up being. Wound up getting more than we billed, which is nice. That means we're getting our aged receivables in. And then January, we billed for 118,000. Again, we're mid-month right now, so that right now is at 71,000 that we've received so far. But that will continue to climb, and I don't see a reason why we won't hit at least what we billed again this month. And I will say, we just did our pre-bill today for our February bills, and we're looking at billing this month for $139,000 The largest bill I think we've ever sent out before. There was a high usage month, used about 600,000 kilowatt hours this month, as a town. So it's a lot of power.
Budget status report. You want
I am
to take that?
did not do a budget status report because we don't have a budget yet, confirmed, so I did not print one. But that I did just wanted to keep it on there, just so, you know,
Okay.
it should be something that will be on there, but we don't have one.
Do we have a motion for the treasurer's report? We need one, right?
Yep.
Do I have a motion for the treasurer's report from anybody?
I make a motion to accept the current report as printed.
I'll second that. Oh, sorry. All in favor, sorry. Aye. And then we have, well, we're gonna have the payables and payroll passed around. And we have an aged receivables report.
Do you want me to just do some highlights on the payables before we send it around?
Yeah, sure.
So the total payables is 101,000. That is not a correct number because 80,000 of it's already been paid to Vepsa, and so we're much lower than that. It's like a $20,000. But just keep that in mind as we're paying because of the timing of the meetings and everything. John Doty and I are working on making what we should be paying for Vepsa later in the month, and then bringing it back to the board meeting at a later date. So you'll see a lot of the Vepsa invoices throughout here. That's the payments that we were making.
Did you include these in the packet?
Yes, I think they're actually after the receivables. I think we did it again this month. I'm sorry. Just looking through here, we have some CED orders, CED Consolidated Electrical District. We have a very large line extension that's coming in the spring, $40,000 one on Ginny Morse Road. The customer asked us to order ahead before he believes the tariffs are going to cause power costs to go up. So he has asked us to order the materials now, which we're doing. We're in the process of doing that. We run into a problem with underground wire. He wants an underground service. Usually we have it cut to length and put on a roll for us. So there's some challenges there. We're going to ask the customer what he wants us to do, but just be aware of that. Credit card is our usual charges. It's the UMA phone and the reception 24/7, and the other one was I ordered a packet of, that was $10, a packet of note cards as for Tyler. It was when Tyler wanted to send a. So I got 10 of them, 10 in the packets for $10. So that was all that was on there. Everything else I believe is pretty. We did get our plowing and sanding bill. It was the first time we've had it for the month. That was $860 altogether so far. Mileage for me going up to a Vepsa meeting. That's pretty much it, I believe. For anomalies.
Will you have any kind of a report on the Vepsa meeting?
I can give you a report in my manager's report.
Okay.
It wasn't a whole lot. I'm going to give you a couple of updates, but there really wasn't.
Much.
It wasn't an eye-opening meeting. It was a lot of updates on past projects, which we'll talk about, AMI project and things like that as in the manager's report. So as long as you guys are good with that, I'll send it around. That's both the payable and the payroll are both
Okay.
Yep.
Your manager's report.
Did anyone have any questions or want to go through the aged receivables?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I put the packet out of order. I'm sorry.
I guess we should look at it first.
Big highlights I would say is our normal our normal people who have agreements are slowly ticking down their payments or their amount that they owe. The one exception, well, two exceptions really. The bakery is running into a problem that they're paying us $300 a week. That has worked so far for us. But now that it's winter time, their current bill is a little bit higher. So they're like, for example, their February bill we're going to send out is $1,500. So if they're paying $300 a week, that's only $1,200 for the month. So they're not even paying their current.
So they're behind.
So they're going to be behind even more.
Just
So we got to talk to them about redoing their agreement so that they're paying their current plus something towards their past due. And I get during the winter that it's different. They're going to use more during the winter than they do during the summer, but we still need to make sure at least current is being covered. The other one is the general store. They just have a massive amount of usage this month, so they're not very far behind, and they don't have an agreement because they tend to pay it.
The general store, Reggie's.
What?
You call that the general store, do you?
Well, whatever it is.
I don't know.
Briggs's. Briggs's store.
So where is that?
So that is, it's not one that has an agreement, so it's not in there on the first. But if you look at JG building is the general store.
So you lumped all the agreements at the top. Gotcha. And then they're alphabetical.
So yeah, and so what we do, just so you're kind of aware of what we're looking at when Linda and I go through this, age two. Anyone in that column we're okay with for now. Anyone in the age 3 column, that's our biggest concerns right now. So anyone in age 3 has a balance that is 3 months old, so 60-day plus. So we're concerned about that, and we're going after them for agreements or payments. Typically, we're getting payments. We sent, I think it was 6 disconnect notices last week, and I think all but one of them has made a full payment on their account.
Is that
That's the
house that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you've got that all kind of worked out.
Yeah, so that's
that's
we
the
pulled the
other- I
meter,
got that,
but
yeah.
eventually somebody's going to take over that house and then
And
have to pay that back.
this
It's a
is
lease.
the same situation where they were pulled.
Which one was that?
The
Naomi?
one right next.
That one's gonna be a write-off this year.
Okay.
It's a apartment
Apartment.
in the back of the store.
Okay.
Well, it just wasn't 12 months, so I didn't want to write it off last year. But she's never gonna pay it.
Gotcha.
So the nice thing is with the agreements that we have, because they're doing pretty well, we're able to start focusing on the ones that don't have agreements and can get them into agreements or payments. So that has been a success this month.
Are you pulling meters regardless of the dollar amount owed?
We do it based on priority goes on the bigger accounts first, but we will work our way to the ones that are smaller.
And
It is irregardless of how much they have for a balance due. But priority has to be given to the bigger ones.
But the total amount is continuing to go down.
Go down, yeah.
So I remember a few months ago it was up in the
Kind of goes up.
70s.
Yeah, 70s exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And that a lot of that has to do with Sawyer.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna hit a point. I anticipate around 35,000 where you're not gonna go down anymore. It's gonna kind of fluctuate. You're never gonna be zero.
Yeah.
So it's gonna kind of fluctuate up and down.
But that's going to be mostly 30-day old,
Exactly.
which I don't get too worried about.
We didn't write this one off.
We did not, because it's not 12 months. Usually I don't want to write anything off under
But I
12
thought
months.
okay.
Because that one, we actually sent that one as a registered letter.
Yeah, I remember.
Which one are you two?
Mark
Peters.
Peterson, sorry. The Candlelight.
So,
What?
Candlelight Bed and Breakfast, the old owner.
so when I started, it seemed to be, indicated to me that this part of the meeting wasn't really something that was to be talked about to the public.
Mhm.
Am I right in that? What you guys had sort of pointed out to us, that the accounts receivable isn't who owes what and how late they are and their names and so on and so forth. But we're recorded now. We're bringing up
We did.
names and it's going to be on a website and anybody can watch this and hear their name being mentioned. So I'm just wondering if that's
Yeah.
appropriate.
We can avoid that for next month. Yeah.
Okay.
I was wondering about that too. You know what? We discussed it here, but how much of this you could put out? Just same as your town report, see? They eliminated your delinquent taxes to a certain extent
Right.
in your town report
Right.
for that reason that it wasn't public
Right.
knowledge. I
It's
wondered.
not supposed to be, or it just
not
was
supposed to be, I guess.
polite
Is
not
that it? Or they took, some reason they did that. And I
Do
wondered.
we have to go into executive session if we're gonna discuss particulars of this?
I'd have to look into the rules of executive session and see if we can legitimately do it. I think debt collection would be something that we could go into executive session for, but I'd have to look at the exact wording and make sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like,
The problem is these packets as packets are technically public knowledge. And I mean, anything we do in this building is public knowledge. It's just a matter of how public do we want it to be.
Well, so in my office, anything that is collected under income and expense
Mhm.
or personal property, it's legislatively deemed that it is not public record. So if there's something out there that says, you know, this information isn't supposed to be shared with the public, we probably shouldn't be doing that.
I'll look into it a little
Alright.
bit and see what we can.
I mean,
Yep, no, that's, what I would say is if it's not, we should not include it in this packet.
okay.
Right.
I can send it to you otherwise somehow. I'd have to
You
figure out
could-
how, but, yeah, potentially we could do that. Well, actually, we could just eliminate this column and just have this.
Yep.
And this.
Yep.
Eliminate name column and just do account
Yep.
and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most important information for us anyway. However, seeing a name, we can go, oh, you know what? I know where they moved, or, I've got their address and we can mail it to that address. Let me get that for you. Sometimes we have information about a person that's,
Right.
or their house is about ready to be put on the market.
Yep. Those are
We
the big
wanna,
ones.
yeah, we wanna get a lead on it. So, yeah, be interesting to know how
And I think
village.
when you guys started doing this, it was before me, but I anticipate you started doing this because it was out of hand. And quite frankly,
I think you guys always, I mean, I've been here forever. and
You've
it's
always had
part of the
this?
packet.
Oh, really?
For a long
Okay.
time.
I assumed it started within the last year or two. Okay. No, that's good to know.
Even Julie Fox, when she was the clerk, would come in and she say, we get this one, and this one. We have this, so much money this month from this one and this one, and this one. We should get this one.
Yeah.
So we should be able to pay this bill, and this bill.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's the way she,
The other thing is technically this part of this report very much could be public. And then the
Oh, yeah.
inner information could be a little bit more.
Sensitively
Yeah.
handled.
I can look into that. I haven't done.
So everybody good with?
yeah, and if we
reviewing
need to
this?
discuss it, is there a
We
section
can,
of
yeah, we can. see it.
executive?
Yeah. Sure, VLC.
Is that signature page making its way around?
I think Bud might have it. Is
Yeah.
this?
I haven't got that right yet.
Sorry, we move on to something else and then we forget to sign it.
So we have, a need to collect $58,204.59.
Correct. That's our current
That's our
age receivable.
Age receivable.
Now, the way our accounting works, just as a side note, while that's going around, the way our accounting works is we're accrual accounting. So the minute our bills, this minute we post the bills for, let's say, 139,000, like we're going to do next week, that becomes accounts receivable of $139,000.
Right.
That gets put into NIMRIC as an account receivable. And as we get payments, we take out of accounts receivable and turn it into cash. And so that continues to happen, ticks it down, and eventually you have what's left over in your aged receivable, and you turn over and you add another. It was a very interesting way of accounting. It's different than the town. It's different than I've done before. So it's kind of Mary Lee and I have had a nice crash course in accounting, accrual accounting, because now El Dorado is no longer the utility billing software. So we've had to kind of catch ourselves up with, because there are still our accounting software, but we needed to figure out how do you bill against with a separate software. So it's been really good because it's gotten us into the accounts and learning about how that all works.
Now the managers report.
The manager's report, you'll see it's a little different this month. I usually just tell you what happened. Ken Nolan at VEPSA puts together a little document, a memorandum of his manager's report. And I thought that was a very nice way of doing it. And I thought it made sense for me to do that as well. So I did change that. I hope this helps. And gives you something tangible to hold on to as part of this. So for the manager's report, dated, this is done on the 7th of February. Department of Public Service, during the rate case, you have a discovery period. Discovery is where the Department of Public Service puts together questions of the utility. There's a first round and a second round. First round, they asked us, I believe it was 8 questions that we responded to. Most of it was VEPSA has to respond. There was a few things I had to do.
What does DPS stand for?
Department of Public Service,
Which is different than,
the Public Utility Commission. So essentially the way it works is you have the Public Utility Commission stands up here, who's in charge of all the utilities in the state of Vermont. Then there's the utilities, us and VEPSA. And then over here, you have Department of Public Service. Department of Public Service is supposed to represent ratepayers, and we represent the utility. We kind of butt heads, and then the Public Utility Commission makes a decision. In this particular case, it seems clear that the Department of Public Service is not really fighting us on this rate case. So, and that's really
okay,
what.
so they're the ones that sent you the list of questions.
Yep.
And then you had to go through
And
all
respond
of it,
to 'em.
respond. It's the discovery. So they did the one round. They have not.
They did not file
the second
anything the
round.
second round, and that was due in January.
Yep.
So they did not file it, so that we are not getting any second questions. On the 18th of February, so I think it's next week. Yeah, next week. They're required to file their testimony, which is what they propose. So we've submitted our proposal of 25% rate increase. They'll submit whatever they're going to recommend to the PUC on the 18th. So it may be they might say, yeah, we agree with the 25%, good enough. And then it should be really quick for the end. If they disagree, then there might be some back and forth. So it's interesting. VEPSA said they're not sure if that's ever happened before, where they don't issue a second round of discovery. It's a very interesting thing that happened.
Well, you did a good job. on the first
Hopefully it
one.
means we did a good job answering the question.
Yeah, that, they forgot to ask a question.
That's what we were kind of thinking. Maybe they missed the deadline. I don't know. Auditors. So the auditors have already started working with us. They sent over a list of all of the information that they're going to need from us, all the reports and everything. Mary Lee and I are starting to tick away at that. There's some concern when we changed from NIMRIC billing to Eldorado billing and how that transition is going to look on paper and how we're going to have to make that, how many corrections we're going to have to do for it. And that'll be something that the auditors will figure out for us. Obviously, we don't do any corrections until they tell us. So just be aware that might slow us down. But other than that, I think everything else should be streamlined. They've already, from what they've seen so far, they've already told us this should be a much faster audit than they've had the last two audits. So that is good. They've been really very good to work with this year. I don't know if it's that we sent it out to bid or if they just are early enough that it's less stressful, but been very good. Eldorado, am I going too fast? Eldorado, so we have 4 demand accounts. Meters, there's 2 different kinds of meter. Well, there's several different kinds of meters, but the 2 big ones, there's ones that measure power consumption, and then there's also demand meter, which measures power consumption, but also measures at any given point within a 5-minute period, what is the highest peak usage. So we measure that, and there's 4 accounts that have that demand reading. And what we do with that is essentially you have to build your grid to that highest consumption amount. So industrial customers get this. So we have the sewer plant in Jacksonville. Sawyer Bentwood has 2 demand meters, and the school has the 4th one. So Eldorado, when they implemented with us, they did not have the demand ratchet set up. There's a 60% ratchet. So essentially, you bill based on whatever the current demand reading is, or whatever the highest demand reading is times 60%, whatever one's higher. So it's almost always current for us. But Barton, who went with Eldorado after us, they have about 300 demand customers, including residential demand. So they had to figure out the ratcheting, and they were an 80% ratchet. So they had to figure that out. So before Barton could go live. So that's been figured out. So that just saves us for 4 meters. I don't have to do calculations anymore. It really didn't make all that much of a difference, but it certainly helps, streamline everything. So the next step is the solar for us, getting the solar onboarded. I'm in talks where I'd say there's a 40% chance that solar will be done in Eldorado for the February billing. The hope was that we would be. It just doesn't seem like we're there yet. We're starting the conversations. We're going to be billing on the 20th, which is next Thursday, I think it is. So it's just not gonna. Yeah. I'm just not confident, and it might happen. But in the meantime, we're sending those solar bills out through NIMRIC anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But Barton is live, which is a big one. That's 3,000 customers. So now VEPSA is a little bit more, there's a little bit more at stake than just Jacksonville with Eldorado, making sure everything's working. So that's always a good thing. AMI, the first round of first article test meters has arrived in Swanton. Swanton is the first utility to go live with that. They're going to be testing them at the end of February. They're going to be doing in-house training with Aclara that is going to take place in Swanton to learn how to test and install those meters. Installation is fairly simple, but testing them will be the big thing. They have a test board that's all set up, and we're all going to learn how to do that. I will definitely be going up. I am trying to convince Richard to go. But I don't know if he will or not. I keep talking to him about it. But we really should have at least one person who knows the meters, at least go up and see the process. So, just as a heads up, that'll be end of February. And once the first article test meters are approved, then it'll be kind of a open to order. So we will be able to place our meter order at that point, for all of our meters. All the utilities should be able to. It is a 6-month lead time right now for meters. So we're probably expecting around fall to get those meters in. The meters can then start being installed. They won't work though until we have the software and the DUCs, which are the data collection units. We're gonna have 4 of those placed. So those probably won't happen because we're in the 3rd tranche of installations. Well, that probably won't happen till springtime or so of 2026. But it could be faster depending on how everybody else rolls out. But we can start installing the meters so they're in place, ready to go. As soon as we start getting the meters in place. And then we just read them just like we normally would instead of having the smart connection.
So what is our cost anticipated to be there?
It was, I'd have to pull the information. It was presented a few months ago. I'd have to pull up the information again. I'll get it for next meeting.
The reason I asked, I just want to make sure we don't get caught flat-footed.
Yep. So there won't be any cost until we go live. So what that means is we've already been told we won't have a cost until 2026 at the earliest,
Okay.
but it'd likely be 2027. So VEPS has already paid for everything. VEPS has paid for everything, already has the grant.
So there's no
And
charge.
it's not like as soon as we order the meters, we're gonna get charged. It won't be like
All
that. It's something that they'll start. They're gonna have to figure out exactly what utility is getting what, do all the calculations, and then figure out what we're due. But I believe we were told 150,000, and we had a 10-year payback period on that, so it shouldn't cost very much. Yeah, I forget that I'd have to look at all the data, but it's pretty cheap in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Three-phase relocation. I mentioned this last meeting. We have the relocation of the cross-country 3-phase that we're working on. We're at the what's called the phasing period, where we actually go up and actually do continuity testing to see what phase matches what line. So you have three different power lines. One is phase A, B, and C, but you got to figure out which one's which. So that's probably one of the more important things from a safety perspective. We are doing that tomorrow, I believe is what they said. We don't have phasing sticks. We're borrowing them from rigs. So that's going to be a big thing for us to do tomorrow. So that will enable us to be able to go live with that, with the first section of it. That first section is from the intersection of Route 100 at the Sawyer Mansion, cuts across to Sawyer Bentwood, down Maple Drive to the end of Brook Street, and then Brook Street will follow back down to Route 100. And there's a pole there that is ready to be essentially blocked off so that we can remove part of the cross country. That's phase 1. That's almost complete. Phase 2, the hope is to do this summer, spring, summer. Yes.
What's the push to do this? Why is it happening?
Yep.
And when so you're going from Route 100 down Maple Drive, and then
Down Brook Street. So right now,
Brook Street. Okay.
yeah, so right now there's 3 phase that comes up Brook Street and then kind of loops around and goes down School Street to hit the Sandry plant. And so that's already done. So we're just making the connection from Sawyer Bentwood's 3 phase, which is already 3 phase, to where it connects down to Sandry. So it's only 2 poles that are really connected right now. It's not.
What's the reason?
So the reason is right now we have from Stimson Hill to the sewer plant is cross country. Completely cross country. Like we have no access. We'd have to hire Green Mountain Power to do anything in there. And we were told by Green Mountain Power multiple times that it'd be about $75,000 repair if the pole broke. So the thought was the $90,000, probably not even that much, work to move the 3-phase on Route 100, on the actual road would be cheaper than taking one out. And a big part of it, when we walked it, Rod and I walked it last summer and found that we had 2 trees actually laying on the lot. We didn't even know that because you can't see it. So there's definitely a concern that can happen and likely is going to happen. Luckily, poles are consolidated pole set, so they set the poles on Route 100 that were needed. And we kind of gave Green Mountain Power the direction that if there is an outage that breaks a pole, move it out on Route 100 right away, so there's not.
And this 3-phase is servicing.
Sewer plant.
Okay.
The Whiting sewer.
Okay.
That's really all it's there for at this point.
Okay.
I mean, it goes for Gordon Moore's old building,
Yeah.
and Sandry,
Yeah.
but the sewer plant is the final leg of the 3-phase. So that's phase one.
Sandry's up on Brook Street.
Correct.
Yeah.
On School Street.
School Street. I
Yeah.
got two mixed up. Okay, I was trying to figure out what the heck is Sandry now. It's the tanks.
Exactly, yeah. So, so this will make the connection back to Route 100, which will remove the first half of the cross-country lines. This little, making it 2-pole connection will remove half of it. The other half is going from Route 100 at Brook Street down to the sewer plant. So those poles, if you've driven out there, are already set. They're ready for us to start running power on them. That was done last summer. Consolidated did it. It cost us, well, they haven't billed us for it yet. And I'm at the point where I'm not paying any bills until they pay their bills. So not really costing us anything. Let's put it that way. And so the next part of this is getting those trimmed out so that we can run power lines on them. So I did ask for proposals from a couple of the guys that we've worked with in the past to work with that. That will come out of line maintenance, not tree trimming, because it is a line maintenance project. It's not a tree trimming project to move that there. So we'll talk about those in a second and have those included in the packet. But it's about $10,000 to do the tree trimming. And then our guys will follow right behind with getting the poles dressed, putting the cross arms on, and getting things all set up for that, so that by summer we'll be ready to pull line through and get that connected. And then that'll be a huge project to be complete.
And at that point, you abandon the other line?
Yeah, we'll have to do some removal because we'll get calls if people see power lines on the ground and stuff. So we'll likely remove pull the wire back through and get rid of it. I'll leave the poles because the poles indicate that we still have a right of way through there. So usually we'll leave the poles. We may climb them and drop some. We'll have to drop the transformers that are in there. We'll probably drop some of the cross arms, so there's nothing that can fall on people.
Right.
But we'll just leave the poles to indicate the right of way there.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be nice to have
Big worry.
that. That's our biggest stretch of cross country that we have. We have other smaller areas, but this is the biggest concern area, just because of the sheer cost of what it costs for us to handle it. So that's the 3-phase relocation. Fire lines, just be aware that we've had, I think it was 2 weekends ago, we had outage calls. 2 of them come in for low-lying wires. When I arrived, they were lines that are fiber lines from DB Fiber. One of them was blocking a driveway completely. The homeowner couldn't get out, and the plow wouldn't go in. So I tried calling DB Fiber because they're not our lines. We can't really touch them. And they told me that they don't have weekend coverage to handle repairs or emergency work. And I obviously expressed my concern about that, and have since called DB Fiber to express that concern. If there's an emergency, obviously, I mean, the lines can get cut, but we're getting calls on it. Greg wound up going out and kind of tying off the line, so the homeowner could get out, as a favor. Obviously, that's on our dime. DB Fiber hasn't said or given us permission to touch their lines. So I would not do that normally, but this person was kind of trapped in their house otherwise. So I just want to make you aware of it. It's something I did call DB Fiber and expressed my concern. They said they're going to work on getting someone who's an emergency, for emergency purposes only on call on weekends. But it's going to be a problem if it continues to happen.
So did their line come down low because it was
It
improperly?
was
installed?
ice.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it was. So it's either an equipment failure or it's improper install. We're not sure which one it is. There's essentially a vise, like the Chinese finger vice grips that you put in. They put that on, but if you put them on backward, they don't work, obviously. Right. So we're not sure if they were put on backward or they're just failing. But essentially what happens is they have that on every pole. It's supposed to keep it tight, and it's slipping and letting it
You
loose.
think that down the road, they would go for hiring our crew to do weekends and pay?
Well, that's what I was hoping that they would say we could touch their lines and we can just bill them for, we spent an hour fixing a line like that.
What would be in our district?
Yeah, exactly. That was my hope. Unfortunately, Gabby, the executive director, is leaving, or has left, I actually think this week. So she didn't really want to tell me I could do that with a new manager coming in. So once the new manager is fully hired and onboarded, I think I might bring it up again and see maybe there's an appetite for that. I did ask Nikki at Green Mountain Power what they do, and they said that they have not had a call for a low line that was a fiber line yet at all. So that's what makes us think that it might be an installation error that happened in Whitingham. Lucky us. But it was funny because on our way home, we had 2 calls for it, and on our way back, we saw another one that we called in too, because we said it's a super low. And I'm surprised we didn't get a call on that one as well. And we didn't have much ice. That wasn't a huge ice storm. So I anticipate if we get a big ice storm, it will have a lot of calls on it. Good news is we're taking those calls. Green Mountain Power isn't, and that should save us quite a bit. It doesn't cost for me to go out and just look at it before.
Well, it'd be nice if DB Fiber would give us permission to touch the line so we could maybe make a little money.
Have they hired somebody?
For the manager?
Yeah.
They said they haven't yet. This was a week ago, so I don't know for sure.
But that adds
But
up
they
forever.
said they have plenty of good applicants, I
Oh,
think
really?
is how they phrased it.
Okay.
So I don't think it'll be long. Actually, I think he said he had overabundance of good applicants. I think is exactly how the board of the chair phrased it to me. So he didn't make it sound like it'd be all that long before they'll have somebody. So the next thing, accident reports, Route 100, Route 112, there's no update. I kind of am at the point where I'm thinking I'm gonna kind of close that file. We'll keep it open, obviously, if somebody reaches out, but I don't see a path forward that's gonna get us paid, unfortunately. And we've already paid that bill, obviously. So I'm gonna remove it from this. But if something comes in, we'll reopen it and have a conversation. The other one is Route 100. We did receive the final payout of, I think it was $8,600.
I think that's.
So we did receive that check and cash that, which is good. And that is also outages this month. We did have on the 28th of January, we had a townwide outage for 50 minutes. It was caused by a motor vehicle accident by the old Jehovah's Witness building. So that was Green Mountain Power's territory, but it caused our feeder to get taken out. Essentially, a guy wire went up into the primary and tripped the recloser. We were actually the first ones there. We called Green Mountain Power and told them where it was. So kind of a funny little story there. And then we had the two low wire calls on the first thing. That was there. And that is my manager's report. The one part of it that we talked about was the 3-phase relocation, that there is some tree trimming that would need to be done. So this, we had two proposals. I got Alpha Arbors, which is Nate Felton and Trevor Haverluck, to look at both of those. It is 5 spans altogether, and it is pretty heavy. I mean, there's never been power lines there, so it's a pretty heavy cutting that needs to be done. I thought the proposals were pretty good at 10,000, just under 10,000 for Trevor and 11,500. My recommendation is Trevor. He already did some of the work there already last year, getting ready for the polls. So my recommendation is to do that. This is probably going to be a little bit more than, it's probably going to be a little less than what he proposed. He had 1,200 for flagging, and we get about $680 a day for flagging. So we'll just pay for that ourselves and make it a little cheaper there. So if you guys are good with that, that would be my recommendation to go for the 3-phase.
Well, I was having a hard time understanding between the two, because this looked like it was isolated, because you said you were putting them out in sort of clumps where they could bid on the whole thing, or they could bid on a little.
Different projects.
Okay.
So that is, we're going to talk about that in a second. That is the full tree trimming for Route 100 from the sewer plant down to the top of Reedsboro Mountain. This project is just this is the 3-phase project of moving
So
3
both of
phase
these
off.
bids are on that.
These two are just that 3-phase
Okay,
that'll be billed towards our line maintenance
okay.
budget.
Do you want a motion on?
I don't necessarily need a motion. I'd like consensus that you guys are, this was a big number. You know, normally if it's $3,000, okay, that's fine. But being a $10,000 expense, I just wanted, you to be aware of it, and that, as long as nobody says, no, I don't think we should do this right now. I think this makes sense. I thought the proposals were reasonable. And we can talk about budget first if you want, before we make a decision. I'm okay with that.
I think we need a motion.
I think we need a motion.
Yeah.
So we can, so let me also state that I do believe we need a purchasing policy, because we do not have one. A purchasing policy, which would give guidance to me as to what needs a motion versus not need a motion.
Mhm.
I have been operating under the town of Whitingham one, which would be, I've been kind of operating, their purchasing policy is $20,000. I would never go that high,
No.
but I'm following a very similar policy at about a $5,000 level is what I've been operating on. But I can change that. We don't have a purchasing policy right now.
I think the difference, Jim, is that we put out a request for bids.
Correct.
And we
Yeah.
got bids.
Right.
And when you get bids, you have to open the bids,
Correct.
which we're doing right now.
Yep.
And,
Now I think it's
and
up to us to accept one bid or the other.
Okay. So you're saying that would be
I think when you put out a bid, then it's gotta
it
come
comes
back,
to the board.
gotta
Okay.
come back.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yep.
Yeah.
And it is something that, I do think we need a purchasing policy to say, when does it need to go out to bid and
Right.
when does it, you know, to define that. And
Right.
as far as I know, we don't have that. Yeah, I don't know if any of you have seen one in the past. But that is something that's on my list to create.
Well, for 50 years, I've been involved in budgets on the other side there.
Right?
Every time you have a bid, you have an awarding of a
Okay,
bid.
cool. That makes sense.
So I would make a motion that we award the bid to Havelock Tree for this work.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Whoever it is. This is kind
And then have that couple $1,000 apart. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
Percentage wise.
Yeah.
Did you see where his father had that thing in
Yeah,
the outside key?
I haven't talked to anybody yet. Trevor and I were texting a little bit while he was asking some questions about the bid. And I just didn't dare to ask, but it's too
I think
bad.
what happened is the guy just
He walked out in front of him.
walked out in front of the trunk.
Yep.
What a horrible thing.
Yeah.
standing
The
there.
karma.
For a number of they've done that, for a lot of people before
I know. I'm hoping he's retiring at this point.
They're all gone back to work yet?
I
I
don't think so.
don't think so yet.
All right.
What are we doing?
You all set?
Yeah.
Budget.
Old business, finalized budget. So we have a budget draft. Is that what we're looking at?
That's what we're looking at. It's 2 pages.
Okay.
I tried to simplify this so that it's not as much going on. But essentially, last time we met, I think we had talked about how I had a budget that was looking really good, and then I was going to finalize the budget and was all of a sudden seeing we're $100,000 short of where I expected us to be in the budget, and I needed to go back and spend some more time with it. So I found out where that $100,000 was. Essentially, when I build my draft budget, or when I built this draft budget, it was in September. September, the way I was calculating and projecting what our total income was going to be was I took our September number and divided that by 9, multiplied it by 12, and that gave me a per month that could then be projected. So I did that with income, but I also did it on some of the bigger expenses. And when I made the adjustment at the end of the year and plugged in actuals, I removed that calculation on the income side, but I did not remove it on some of the expense side. So my expenses, for example, purchase power line was over $900,000. So when I took that out, it was actually calculating based on realistic numbers instead of unrealistic numbers. It put me back where I was expecting my budget to be. So that was the correction I had to make from last month. And now I feel pretty good about these numbers coming in. Essentially, we're projected to receive in sales $1.5 million. I have gone through, and I will say this is, I feel comfortable with this budget. This budget is not skimping by. It's not, this is making sure we have money to do the things we need to do without overspending. And at the end of the day, it leaves us with 1.4 million in expenses, which is give us an extra $30,000 at the end of the year. Obviously, that would go towards VEPSA this year, but that this feels very comfortable to me. If you guys came back and said, I need you to buckle a little bit, I could. I probably could come up with another 20,000.
Are the interest charges right at the top, VEPSA,
Yes,
basically?
the interest, this one right here. Yeah, other interest expenses, that's so.
Well, so what's the difference between the two? You have other interest expense, you said that's VEPSA, and then interest charges. What's interest?
I don't know what that would be.
charges?
That one, it's the rolled up account, but I'm not sure why that's, so those two the 2025 match, but the 24 actual doesn't. It's the only one that doesn't. I need to look at that. That's just a calculation thing
Gotcha.
going on. Because that should just be the sum of the other interest expense.
Oh, I see.
It should just be
it's
the
not-
parent. Yeah.
Okay, so those are
yeah.
sums. Gotcha.
Maybe if you expand it between sections here,
Yeah,
that would
Yeah.
help us,
understood.
put some spacing between them.
Yeah. Just you're saying after sales, put
Yeah.
a dead space.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of understandable when you look up purchase power project 10, there's no line in between each one of those.
Yep.
And then you have a total operating expense, and then you have distribution.
Yeah. So that's just a hard coded. That's why. Yeah. So that should just be equal. But yeah, I can definitely do that. Create the space and send that out again. So big highlights to point out. Tree trimming expense is the big one that I want to point out. $135,000 is budgeted for tree trimming expense. We had some question about whether we were going to have to go in for another rate increase because of the tree trimming. We're left over $30,000 at the end of the year. If we went in for another rate increase, we probably have $100,000 that we could pay towards VEPSA every year. But we still are going to make it through, even if we do the tree trimming expense. If we eat the tree trimming expense with the current budget, we will still make it through with having some extra. So I don't think we necessarily need a rate case. We definitely don't need it right now. I'm happy with that. I was very nervous about what that looks like to go in a second time, but that's clearly not something we need to do because we're able to include the tree trimming.
I have a question about meter reading labor.
Yes.
So, and I wanted to ask it before, you had, given us information about with your manager's report.
For the AMI.
The AMI, and, we're gonna have to do manual readings until the software is up and running. Once the software is up and running, what's Richard doing?
So, we're definitely gonna need someone to still drive the lines monthly. Let's start with that. But that doesn't mean get out every house and look at meters, right? That's a drive. It takes one day. But I want somebody eyes on the lines every month. Are there trees that are causing a problem? That's something that we really are benefiting from right now from meter reading labor that we're not otherwise.
You're not expensing it there.
You're not expensing. Yeah, you're expensing it towards meter reading labor,
Right.
But it is maintenance of line projects. That's just something that I've been told by many utilities. A lot of people just cut the meter reading labor, and then all of a sudden you don't have anybody looking at the lines. Green Mountain Power did this. It was a huge problem for them, and it still is something they're trying to work on. The other thing is we're going to have people who don't switch to smart meters. You can always opt out, so there's still going to be some meter reading. I don't know. It's not going to be that big, but there will be some meter reading from that perspective. And then the last thing is we still need to keep Richard on to make sure that we have someone to change out meters. Somebody, needs to be pulled or something, or somebody's is broken. A lot of times we have metal roofs, the snow comes down, it hits the meter, breaks it or knocks it out, something needs to be adjusted. So yes, it will likely go down in cost.
But in the next budget, not.
It won't be in this budget. As a matter of fact, it went up in this budget. You can see
Yeah.
we spent $10,000. I'm anticipating this fall, we're gonna get some meters in and we're gonna start doing some change outs. And so I wanted to budget a little bit of extra money
Yeah.
there for us
Okay.
to start doing those change outs.
But
That
in
should
the
get us-
27 budget probably would be down.
And then I would,
Question
Yeah.
on that tree trimming.
Yeah.
The danger trees, you ain't mentioned them. There's a lot of them that should
Yep.
be cut. You can look right through them and
Yep.
they should be cut.
yep,
That's what.
if you're okay with it, we'll talk about it in a second. I have
Yeah, no,
it's a problem. You're right. Yep.
I-
That's the honestly, that's the bigger
Run back
problem.
up, head up. Boy, we have past squad drop, you look right, it's about that big, and you look right through them,
Yep.
2, 3 like that.
So usually what we do, like last year, we did 5 danger trees.
Yeah.
That's about what I like to be is about $5,000 or five danger trees a year that we identify and we take down. That's about $25,000. About $5,000 a tree to take them down. So yes,
But you know, like I got out to Rod, there's one about that size. He took the excavator,
Yeah.
trimmed it, left on like that, right in the power line. I said, oh no, we leave it for your grandson can tap it. He said, I won't trickle off the pipeline. So I was telling Stanley, they cut it. For that size, it costs what, $5? Get rid of it.
right. When it becomes that size, it costs
about
$500.
$5,000, yeah.
Right.
So it's just, yeah.
And we'll talk about that when we do the RFP for tree trimming.
Yeah, I noticed one yesterday up past my garage, just a popple about that big,
Oh yeah.
right near the road, the power line's on the other side of the road, but right near.
Where is this?
Past my garage, you go up the hill,
Oh,
on the
yeah.
left, it's just a popple.
Butler Brook is a rough
Yeah.
road from a tree trimming
Oh, yeah.
perspective.
Well, then, that popple, right now it could be.
Well, those big maples up by Robots,
those.
those are
Oh, yeah.
every year we get one that comes
By
down.
Hermondale, there.
Yep. Yeah, actually.
Well, Ken Butler goes, there's one with limb on his that's coming out like that, it's that big, and you can see the rot right through it.
So the goal with the tree trimming is to have danger trees and then our tree trimming cycle, both included in that. So that 135, that's the goal, is to have that included. And we'll talk about our tree trimming proposals when we get to that in a
Just
second.
shoot the top off.
So I got this, I hit,
15 feet.
drive to look at lines. Meter readers will need to be changed out for smart meters.
Yep.
And pulling meters.
Correct.
Is there something else
Um,
that he's gonna be?
and then the only other thing, which would not go under meter reading labor, would just be working with the linemen.
Yeah, that's something different.
But yeah, that would be, I just expect
But
other than that,
basically,
we
he's
could,
looking at the lines for
Correct.
the most part, every month.
correct.
Monthly. Okay.
And I've already talked to him about most of this. The other thing he might do is meter testing. When we get new meters in, this training that we're gonna go do is learn how to
Is
test
gonna go.
meters. And part of smart meters is you gotta plug them in and make sure they're sending the signal before you stick it in somebody's house. And program them and set them up with the account and things like that. So we're not sure what that's gonna look like yet, if that's gonna be Richard or someone else, but I've already talked to Richard about this process. He is not concerned in any way, shape, or form. I think he honestly would take the retirement if we offered it to him,
Well,
but yeah, I think he's happy to help wherever he can. The 3% that you guys approved for salaries is already included in all of these. One thing, office supplies and expenses, we have that and the that and software. which I can't find right now.
Right. underneath.
It's right
Oh, yeah. Are both increased. That's going to be, part of that is figuring out the, where we're going to be billing, the envelopes that are being sent out, the software that we're going to be using for, the Eldorado software. And yeah, the thought is we're going to drop office expenses.
And
I
increase
need
the software.
an increased software. I need to make sure where things are hitting right now. So it's going to be one of those two buckets is going to be the total of 21,000. I don't think it's going to cost that, but I wanted to just make sure we have it covered. I think right now it's hitting office expenses is where I'm understanding. So that's why I brought that back up, just to make sure that we're including it there.
Back up from,
I think my last budget, I had that down to 10,000 and I just, it's hitting there right now. And I wanted to make sure I put it back in.
because it's actually decreasing from
Correct.
actuals.
Correct. Uniforms. I had it at 2,000. I did bump it up to 5 because I was nervous 2 isn't going to be, if someone, my concern is that people are going to be needing steel-toed shoes. Is a fairly big expense. It's about $200 a piece. Things like that. So I did just want to make sure it's there. I can lower that. That, as I said, there's a couple areas I can lower.
Was there something else with new helmets too?
New helmets. The OSHA, National OSHA is requiring change out of hard hats. I don't know if that's going to be a requirement this year or not.
Yes, Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
You cut that.
But right now, I mean, I don't know how much you guys know, and I don't really want to say it on there, but we get a lot of things handed to us. I don't want to say much more than that, but we do not spend a lot of money at all when it comes to linemen and things like that. I would like to get a little bit better about making sure we're budgeting for those things and able to purchase what we need for them. A good example is phasing sticks. Right now, we don't use phasing sticks very often. We would never buy them. We're lucky that we have some linemen who know people who are borrowing from. That's great. We're going to use them. I wouldn't propose buying them. One thing that we did the other day, we had a transformer that got overloaded on, doesn't matter, off of Burlington Hill Road, Cyrus Road. Thank you. Cyrus Road. We had a transformer that got overloaded. It wound up just blowing a fuse, but as we measured it, we were saying, wow, this is a huge, big load that's on here. We had a 10 kVA transformer. It was measured out that we needed much bigger. So we went out and changed the transformer. Dale and I came down, we grabbed the transformer, we went back out, put the new transformer up, went to turn the power on. Transformer doesn't work. The new transformer doesn't work. So we had to lower it down. Greg came along, and in his toolbox, he had a tester that can test it on the ground. And it's like, yeah, it's dead. So we just had that tool out there. We could test it before we put it up on a pole at 0 degrees and know if it works or not. That's just the one example of where, I mean, that's not a uniform example, but it is an example of where our guys really haven't.
Just because of their connections.
Correct. They're not asking for anything, but I'd like to be able to offer them something. If they said, I need new steel toe shoes, I could say, we have it in our budget. Let's pay for it for them.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. As I said, there's room for fluctuation. If you want me to bring that down to $2,000 again, we have room to do that.
Just looking at
But it was a change from last time. You're right.
Just wanted an explanation.
And then, of course, Richard is the other one. He is out and about, and he wears a Jacksonville Electric T-shirt that we got last year, which was awesome. It's $10 a piece. During the winter, he doesn't have anything that says Jacksonville Electric. I'm not sure anyone would question it, but I think it does make sense for when we're out and about for people to know who we are.
some kind of employee badge.
We could do that, yeah. Figure out something that
Yeah,
says,
just-
yep. I like that idea. I did increase maintenance of general plants. As we've mentioned, there are a few things in here that we would like to work on. I think that windows in particular are a big concern. Windows and door are kind of our two that are topping the list. Some carpeting, maybe
Where's
in
that?
here. So that's the second to last.
Okay.
Yep. Maintenance of general plan. It went, we spent 7,000 this year. I'd like to bump it up to 15. I think windows, I kind of went through and just quickly did some calculations with Linda. So we had on the list carpeting, at least for in here, but even replacing that one, we've talked about earlier this year, potentially doing that. If heat pumps, potentially, I don't think we need them. They're kind of a low priority. Door was both of our number one priority. I mean, the wind just blows through it. People can't figure out if you push or pull. But when you do the door, you also need to figure out the new drop box. That drop box is like zero security whatsoever.
Right.
And so I'd like to, they have some nice drop boxes that can go in the wall and have actual combinations on them. You can't reach in. So that was another thing we had on here. Security system or fire alarms. We don't have anything in here for any kind of security or safety in the building. So I got some cheap smoke detectors when I first started because we literally didn't have smoke alarms in here. So I got a CO meter and smoke alarms. But it is something, we have a lot of equipment that's worth a lot of money and no security at all. We wouldn't know until Monday if somebody broke in on a Friday night. Well is obviously on our list. No, don't really need it. And then power backup of some sort. If power goes out, we lose it here. It's probably the most important time for us to have power is when our power goes out and we just don't have it right now. So that's my list of things. Those are desires. Obviously 15,000 is not going to get all that. But that's just.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
I've always brought up GIS mapping
Yep.
and I got a really quick blurb about it.
Sure.
I don't know if there's something concrete
Yeah.
or what are we paying for?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money for one town that is
So
not really needing any updates.
yeah.
Or are they?
So they are.
Okay.
So let me start with GIS is required by state law. Let's start with that. We are required to have mapping. That is a new requirement as of, I think 4 years ago. That's when BEPSA started doing it, was when we required to. Our maps are very out of date. They were actually put together by Ken Nolan when he was working at VEPSA before he was general manager and before he went to Burlington Electric. He is now back and as general manager. He said it was about 16 to 20 years ago. So our maps are there, which is a big step up because a lot of them, they weren't there. But so Jacksonville has information there, but it's not up to date. When we get smart meters, it will have to be up to date. That will enable us to be able to do outage management systems. It will allow us to do grid monitoring where we're seeing our load phasing, our tree trimming requirements will be in there as well. And these are all things the state is now requiring us to have. We are required as of now, but have an exception to having a outage management system, which ties into Vermont outage map that will automatically, when the power goes out, it will automatically report this many meters are out. That is required already. We have an exception. VEPSA has an exception because we're in the process of putting in AMI. So we have that exception, and that is going to be something that requires GIS. So updates that are coming. this summer, we have the GIS company that we use is Empower. They're going to be coming and updating all of our data. They're going to come down and literally go through our whole town and move all the data points. That's a $30,000 cost. That is something that VEPS is going to finance for us, and that's what you're seeing the GIS going up for. Is because we're going to be seeing some of that cost coming in. The other thing that we have with that is because that I don't think it's going to cost us $10,000. It's going to be a 10-year financing, so it's not going to cost us $10,000 to do that. But there is going to be some integration that's going to be needed when we do AMI, and I just don't know when that's going to be. So I don't think we're going to spend that full $10,000 on GIS, but I want to make sure it's there in case we do all of a sudden need it. It's one of the areas that I think we may get pinched. If something happens and we need to do it, it'd be nice to have a little bit of money there. That's a very good question though, because that's a good example of something I know and that you don't, and that it's nice to know where there's gaps.
Where's the concrete? Is there, we go to a website, can we go to a site to see something mapped out?
We can,
Mhm.
if you ever want, you want me to do a demo of our.
It's just something that you have access to
Right
through
now, it's
VEPSA?
Yep, it's a BEPSA database. It's a
Got it.
BEPSA owned server
Okay,
that I can log into. Rod has a log. All the linemen have a login.
okay.
And we have a tablet that we can actually take out and click on. It gives us the ability, we can go out here and look at this transformer and see it's a 25 kVA transformer. It's got this size fuse on it. Cool. So we're going to an outage and we can see all that information is there. The problem is all that information is garbage because it was done 25 years ago and it's probably not right. So that's why we need the updated information, and then we'll be able to maintain it going forward. But yes, it's and we're going to be sharing our information with Green Mountain Power. Not all the utilities are planning to do that, but we're planning on integrating with them. So when they're coming to one of our calls that we do, if we call because something's major and we need their help, they're able to come in and see our information as well.
What's this person that's coming down? What are they doing to the lines?
They're not doing anything to the lines. They're going to go and they're going to be driving. They actually have a machine that does it. They drive and it records the information of how much, what size fuse things are, whether there's a cutout, where the poles
It's
are.
like the robot in
Yeah.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, exactly. So I was expressing my interest in having an intern to VEPSA that would come and do it. And I kind of got shot down because the problem is an intern doesn't really know what they're looking at. And I agree, that you could get somebody, they could try.
No,
But
I can't try for you.
Yeah, because I was
promoting
thinking
that.
that would be a good way of doing it. It'd be good to get somebody in, and there's GIS is like the big thing right now. And so, but the problem is it's something very specific. Empower, I think they told us it's going to take 4 days for them to do it. Again, it's literally driving the lines. It's not really a person doing it, but you're paying for the software. Empower is a pretty big company and they're doing it fairly cheap for what they're doing.
Okay.
But it could be worse. Hardwick has to do their entire line system, and their estimate was $175,000 to do their whole system. So I was fortunate to hear there was only 30,000 for us. One other call out I want to make is FICA, Medi, and retirement. I've asked Mary Lee to split this out going forward, to retirement to be a different line than FICA Medi, because their FICA Medi is not. So that we had $20,000 in an expense this year in FICA Medi, and I've asked her to split that out into 2 10s.
You were going to look at property insurance.
Yes, I did.
Months ago.
Yep.
You did, and you found that they were right.
They are right, but they are misleading.
Okay.
And this is, I really want to work with Mary Lee on getting these names a little bit more accurate. So property insurance is everything we pay to VLCT. It's not just property insurance. So it includes, for example, workers' comp. Workers' comp is $15,000 of the $18,000. So that's where we're getting hit, but it looks like property insurance. It's not property insurance. Our property insurance doesn't cost 18,000.
Yeah.
So that's
So
That was-
you need to add a new
right.
line item.
We really need to go through all of these and see if they're right and create new line items where they need to be created.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a project that I'm hoping to tackle in 2025. I think that these are just confusing. They're not helping anybody.
Yeah, because you have to know what's inside each Easter egg.
Exactly. So that is something we're going to work on. Hopefully after the audit is complete. We can't change anything while the audit's being conducted or in the meantime. You can, but then it just gets messy.
Yeah.
It's a lot better if we can wait until after the audit's done and do the cleanup. And I actually have said I'm going to have the auditors make recommendations to us as well.
Okay.
Just
The line
because-
extension labor is nothing.
So we don't budget for line extensions. We don't line
Okay.
extension income. We don't budget for either. There will be income there because we actually charge, like we pay our linemen $70 an
But
hour.
this is under expenses.
Correct. So we don't budget for income and we don't budget for expense.
Okay.
It is an expense and an income that we will get, but we don't. I mean, there could be. We know there's going to be a
So it's a
$40,000.
wash.
It's a wash. We bill out our men at $150 an hour and pay them $70 an hour. There's going to be profit that comes in from that, but we just don't know what it's going to be. I don't want to budget for it.
Yeah, okay.
Knowing that we just don't know what it's going to be.
So you need a motion, correct?
I would like this to be approved so I can get it plugged in and start giving you a budget status report. Obviously, if there's changes you guys want to make after we approve it, that's fine too, but it's at least something I can work towards.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think when the auditors give you the go ahead.
Yeah.
That
We started making
would be-
changes last year and they made us reverse them.
Yeah.
We changed some big account names and I
well,
thought, no, we shouldn't do that.
it'll be much easier to make sense of each category
Right.
without having to be in the know. You ought to be able to read it and understand it.
Next is
Tree trimming.
RFP for tree trimming 2025.
So we sent out our tree trimming RFP. If anybody wants a copy of it, there's some right on the table over here. You guys have already seen it. We presented it last meeting. I sent it out. We had our pre-bid meeting was attended by, I believe, 5 companies, which was really positive. I was really happy and pleased to see that many people interested. I did receive 3 bids. Bidding closed. Proposals were due back to me as of tonight at 5 o'clock. So I did receive 3 proposals. This, I believe, is in your packet. It's just an overview of the proposals. The first one was Alpha Arbors, which is Nate Felton out of Stanford. His is 69,000. I would like to talk to him about it because I don't know if he was missing something. It just seems very low to me, especially based on what others have presented.
Yeah.
I just don't want to. I don't want to mislead you guys into thinking, oh, he's 70,000. That's what it is. Let's do it. I'd like to talk to him and make sure he's not missing something there. The next one is Haverluck. As you know, we've worked with Haverluck quite a bit in the past. $127,550. His included some things that so his actual number he gave me was 135,203, but he included a 6% sales tax, which obviously we're not having to pay. So that's where I came up with 127,000 because I removed that. All of these guys provided flagging. His rate for flagging was $1,250 a day. We get that cheaper. So his specifically called out flagging was this much, so I could, we could technically remove that, be a little cheaper, and pay for it ourselves. But all of these guys probably have about the same rate, so that is a wash in the end. And then Williman is 131,600. So it was interesting to me that Wimbledon and Haverluck were pretty gosh darn close. And then obviously Alpha Arbors and Nate. Very low.
Something.
So something's not right. I did talk to him a little bit this morning because his proposal mentioned Route 100, but didn't mention any of the other roads, which included Town Hill Road and Sadaga Lake. So I was kind of concerned maybe he just left those out. He told me he included Town Hill and part of Sadaga Lake Road, but didn't know if he didn't say any. He said part of Sadaga Lake Road. So I said, well, it's all of Sadaga Lake Road. So I'd like to go back and talk to him.
Yeah.
So
So
you want to wait for us?
yes, I may, if you guys are not against it, schedule a meeting that just gets approval for this potentially later in the month. Just because I don't want to wait another month to tell these guys, because this is a big work.
3 of us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something that I just don't feel like I can put forth a recommendation without having all the facts.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was 5 o'clock. I couldn't really get anything.
Right.
But the good news is, I just want to point this out. Our budget, I put 135,000 before I got proposals back. I'm hoping, that the proposals will be. I was hoping that we'd have enough for danger trees plus, plus this project year that we do. If we're 127,000, and I think I can take a little bit more off. I think I can get down to like 115,000 with flagging on these proposals. That gives us about 20,000 for danger trees, which is where we want it to be.
So there are problems with at least 2 of the 3.
I would say 3 of the 3. Because Wimbledon's, they're not really problems. Wimbledon's includes, so Wimbledon's is going to include flagging as well, because that's what we wanted them to include flagging just in case. He charged $1,000 a day. I know I can get it for 680 because that's what we do. So not really a problem necessarily with that one. The problem, I would say, I guess, with Haverluck is he included tax where he shouldn't have. And it's funny because his other proposal that they had earlier in the meeting. So that was just an oversight. And then Alpha Arbors just, I'm not sure what his, I don't know what it is.
Did they include flagger?
Yes, they all included. I had specifically asked for them too, and he didn't. I don't think he gave what his cost was. No, he just gave me a bolt. This is what it's going to cost at 69,000. But I've never seen anyone get it for the price we do, so I kind of figured flagging out of pocket, which is fine.
So are you looking for a motion here?
I don't think we can do a motion without getting a little bit more clarity.
Then
Do you agree with me on that?
I do. But I'd like to hope that we reject all bids pending further clarification
Okay.
by the manager.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay.
You know better than I do.
I'll second that. All in favor?
So I will go back and try to get these bids cleaned up and then bring bids back to you.
Yeah,
when we have.
we only had 2 hours. 1 hour.
You'd be surprised.
New business.
Okay. So we have a contractor who has reached out to us and has asked to use our truck with alignment. So paying for alignment and a truck to use our truck to put up trusses, roof trusses. I personally would say no, but it is technically a source of income. And it how do I phrase this? It's kind of it's already been done before without me knowing about it, which is part of the concern. So then when it came up from the same contractor to do it again, I kind of said, oh, I need to go to the board and ask if this is something we're even interested in thinking about doing. My personal recommendation is something to break on that truck super easily by doing something it's not designed to do. That's my biggest concern. It's not really designed to do that kind of work. It's capable of it, certainly, but that's a lot of, we spent a lot of money on that truck to make it do what we need it to do. And I'm just nervous.
Truck is the liability.
And then there's a liability.
Dangerous, right? That put a lot of trucks up, I'm gonna tell you.
Right. So I don't want it on me to make that decision. So I wanted it to be the board tells me this is what you want to do, and that's it. And the problem is if you do it with one contractor, you have to do it with any contractor.
Yeah, we can't do it. You gotta get a crane in. I've done it. You get a crane and do it right. You don't power around trusses.
Plenty of things you can rent, right? Route 112, Route 109.
Mhm.
I agree. We shouldn't be. That truck is like too precious. We've invested in going this route and cutting ties with Green Mountain Power. It was very expensive and we should take care of it. And yeah, I mean, income is income, but I think it's worth it. Take it from the carpenter who's raised a lot of trusses.
All right.
Not the
So
rest of
that's all I need from you guys. That was my gut, and I wanted to make sure I knew what you guys thought as well. That's all I had for that.
the backup
So
power.
backup power / office project. We already went through this list when we were talking about budget.
Yep.
But this was something that we lost power from. Anytime we lose power, really, but this last time we lost power. Just to give some perspective of what happens in this office when we're working during the day and the power goes out. Power goes out. I immediately get up and run to my house as fast as I can because at my house I have a power wall backup and I can find out what's going on and start fielding phone calls. We don't have backup power here, obviously. So we can't handle those calls. They automatically go to reception 24/7, which is why we pay for the answering service. That's great. But at the same time, we're not getting those calls when we could be. So I did. So this last time we had the outage, it works. What I would like to do, ideally, is have. If we had backup power, we'd start receiving the calls. We'd recognize that there's a townwide outage. We would get on our. So when you call into Jacksonville Electric, there's a a thing that says, welcome to Jacksonville Electric. If this is an emergency, such and such, if this is an outage, press 1. If it's customer service, press 2. In that recording, I can quickly add, and I do add when I have a second, when there's an outage, I say there's an outage on Holbrook Road, or there's an outage wherever. So people, when they call in, are hearing that we're already recognizing it and that they don't need to continue to the next step. So when there's an outage, my first step I'd like to do is, yes, there's an outage, get on and say, Jacksonville Electric, thank you for calling Jacksonville Electric. We're aware of an outage and that we're working to get it restored. That's the first thing. I can't do that until I'm at my house right now. So then obviously then we need to start investigating what the outage is, and finding out, usually if we're out here, it's a townwide outage. It's usually pretty evident. So I'm going to the recloser and then we start work on that process. So one of the things that, and in the meantime, we're getting people who are calling in to every line possible at Jacksonville Electric, trying to get through to somebody. They're asking for callbacks. They're asking for, how long is it going to be out? A lot of those questions aren't questions we have the answers to. But when we have 50 people who call into an answering service and say they want to call back, we can't realistically call those people back. If we had the ability to have Linda here answering the phones and saying, yeah, we're aware of the outage, we're working on it, then they might not need to call back. So I would at some point like to figure out backup power. I have, as I said, I have a power wall at my house. I reached out to the company who installed my power wall just to see what it would cost. It was like $14,000. So I don't propose doing that in any way, shape, or form. But it is something I think if you guys have any ideas or thoughts, backup power, we really do need to figure out something. It is.
How much would it cost to put a generator in that just?
I think it's like 12. So that was my next step, was finding out what. So I remember when I got my power wall, it cost the same as a generator. I had it priced out to figure out, and it was the exact same price. So I was like, oh well, in that case, I might as well do the power wall because I have solar. That's what happened at my house.
I can, well, I mean, it costs, everything's gonna be different, but we had a generator put in. Electrician came, connected it. You still have to turn switches. So you have to be there. So it's not like it's an automatic. I don't think there's an auto.
See, I just don't know. In my opinion,
to flip a switch.
Yeah, the switches wouldn't be too bad. If I had to start it, that by the time I get it started, I could have already figured out what the outage is and done it. You know what I mean? So that's if it's just switches, that's one thing. But if it's like manually going and starting it, I just don't know. Again, I'm better off just going to my house and taking the call there. I'm fine with the process it currently is, but I wanted to make sure you were aware of how that looks right now.
So we don't have the type of phone that you can just get one of the old-fashioned phones.
DV funders, anything voice over IP doesn't go through. And all our phones plug into outlets anyway. So it's not a rush, but it is something. I just wanted to make sure you were aware. So the quote I got was $14,000 for one power wall and $24,000 for 2 power walls. I don't think we need 2. We don't use a whole lot of power. But it was interesting to hear them say, just to give some perspective, 3 years ago, I paid $12,000 to do my power wall plus a 200 amp upgrade of my service with an entire breaker panel. A change out. So these have gone up significantly in price since I installed mine 3 years ago. I was kind of thinking, well, if it's 8,000, that's not that bad, but that's clearly not where.
Well, can you look into
I'll look into a
a
generator.
generator?
Yep.
And maybe a local contractor that
Absolutely.
can do it.
Yep. That was something I was going to suggest maybe doing. And then, as I've mentioned earlier, we had a kind of a list of Linda and I put together of things that we thought would be good in the office. The big thing was the doors and the windows with the Dropbox.
So,
we should do.
Danny, are you still up for? I mean, I don't know if I'm stepping in a line here, but are you still up for doing any repairs? putting a new door in? I
Where,
mean, how hard is it to buy a door and put a door in?
Well, the problem is you need an ADA door, which is what,
where to put the door? Oh, right there.
that front door. We really need one that pushes out. You have a breaker bar and pushes out. That's what you should have to be up to fire code. That one right now is very drafty. I mean, it has a hole in the middle of it anyway, but I don't know. It works. It's fine.
Well, what's
Um,
the difficulty in putting the hinges on the other side? Or maybe it's not hinges, well, yeah, it's gonna,
well, it's they're supposed
It's
to have
gonna
crash.
open.
They're supposed to have a crash bar. So when you're inside, you push the like you
Like
you
in a
push
school.
like in a school. You're supposed to have a crash bar that opens. And any if we upgrade the door, that will be a requirement.
You gotta change the jam, push it out, the jam.
Right.
Should see if the school has any laying around in the
Right,
wood.
from the old one. So I don't know.
I'm almost an expert on fixing those things.
My big for me the bigger concern was the windows because that window in the front I think is gonna fall out soon. If you go feel the window, it's all dry rot. And we're seriously concerned it's gonna fall out of the window. So that was my bigger concern. Linda said door was her bigger concern. So I was like, okay, let's say windows and doors and cover it all. But I do think that's why I budgeted the 15,000. I think there's some room there for whether Kenny does it or somebody else does it.
Mhm.
We have some room to get things a little bit more buttoned up, I think, at the office. But I just wanted to bring those up.
and Great River Hydro.
And if generator is next year, that's next year. That's fine.
Well, it just seems like it's, solving a $200 problem with a $14,000 solution.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, I can run to my house and do what I'm doing right now for the amount of times it happens. It's not a big deal. Great River Hydro. Great River Hydro emailed me at like 3:30 today and said, "Hey, we heard you have $24,000 of our money in an account, and we'd like that back," which is fine. So I don't know if we need permission. I'm guessing we do need permission from the board for you to be able to close that account out. Just because it is $22,000, but I just wanted to bring it up if I don't know.
Almost 23.
So they finally acknowledge that we've got the money, they'd
Yep.
like it back.
Yep.
Well,
And it was somebody I hadn't reached out to yet. I've reached out to a lot of people trying to find out who it was, but this was a vice president, so
I make a motion that we send that money back to them to appropriate people,
and close out the account.
close it and close that account out.
Second. Not trying to second it. Okay. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Yes, that is it, and if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn. I'll accept it.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
7:58.
All right.
58.
Yeah.